Bismillahirrahmanirrahim and Assalamu alaikum dear students. Welcome to our new lecture. Today we are going to start the next chapter which is relevant to the Bayesian decision theory. We have to see that what is Bayesian rule, how this decision theory works in classification and how it could be applied using a sample data. Introduction. Data sets are prepared from the process which is not completely known. We have previously seen that the samples are taken from a known if a sample is taken from a known distribution, it is easy to estimate its parameters and it's easy to predict about the new data because we completely know about the distribution of the data from where we have taken the sample. However, in real life, when we have to apply our AI functions or AI software, data sets are prepared from the process which is not completely known to us. Somebody has provided us the data set, and then we have to decide or we have to design the algorithms to decide on the basis of that data set. We do not know exactly how the data is distributed. We model the process at a random process. Now, this is a key concept which we have to remember. Whatever the data is given to us, we initially decide about it that it is taken from some random distribution which is probabilistic, of course. Consider the example of a roulette table. Here you can see that this is a roulette table and here it is rotating. So when we have to rotate this table, it is a random process, right? It is a random experiment. However, we can guess if different parameters are known. For example, uh, we look at this space, so no one can tell that if it is moved, so on which point it would stop. But if we know something about the distribution, we can guess that where it would stop, and that guess makes our prediction much better. What the factors are there? The exact composition of the wheel, how that has been constructed, how the weights are divided on the wheel, its initial position, the force which is applied on it, and the direction that it is applied to it, on which direction it has been moved and with which force, and where and how it is started. So these are few of the points. If we know about these things, we are more better to consider, to estimate, to decide about the point where it would stop. There are two types of variables which are present in our sample or in the process from where the data has been constructed or collected. One is called the observable variables, the variables whose values are given and could be observed easily. For example, if we have a coin and we want to toss it, so we know that whether it would show up a head or it would show up a tail. There are also some unobservable variables. What are the unobservable variables? The extra information that can help in predicting the output of random experiment. And we define it as this: x is equal to f of z, a deterministic function that defines the outcome from an unobservable pieces of knowledge. So in fact, we have to combine these 2 points to predict about the new data that is given to us. We cannot model the process this way. What we do, define the outcome. We should be able to define the process in this way, but we cannot do that. So we use some modified procedure, which is define the outcome x as a random variable drawn from a probability distribution that is unknown to us, that specifies the process. So again, I repeat what we have to do. We have to define a random variable some x, and we have to assume about the probability distribution from where this x has been taken, and then using the probability theory, we try to predict its outcome when it is given to the process of some random estimation. Modeling data distribution, how we would model it? Again, We do not know exactly from where the data has been taken or what is the data distribution, so we will model it or we will assume about it. The outcome of tossing a coin is head or tail. We know we are taking one example which would help us to understand the modeling process of data distribution. Define a random variable that takes one of the two values. We define a random variable that would take one of two values in our this experiment, in our this example. So the variable that we define, that is x. X is a variable which would denote the outcome of our random experiment. We define ourselves that if there is head, x would be 1, and if there is tail, x would be 0. This we have to define, right? We know that the Bernoulli distribution deals with such type of variables. Previously, we have studied that Bernoulli distribution is a distribution that deals with an experiment which has two outcomes, one of two outcomes, possible outcomes. So this discussion gives us the idea that we can apply the Bernoulli distribution for this kind of experiment. Probability of x is equal to 1, that is given by P0, and probability of the second outcome, that is given by 1 minus P0. We previously know that all the possible outcomes of an experiment xi, total probability of those outcome is 1. So if P0 is given for x power of 1, x is equal to 1, then 1 minus P0 would be given to x is equal to 0. So if we know P0, the probability of coming, for example, head, the event in which we are interested, prediction will be head if P0 would be greater than 1 by 2. Of course, total probability is 1, and for head, it would be, for example, we say that 1 by 2, and for tail, we say that 1 by 2. However, we model our formula in such a way that if the value of the probability, this h becomes greater than probability of tail, so we will say that if P0, probability of head, that is greater than 1 by 2, it means our prediction is head. If P0 is less than 1 by 2, our prediction would be tail. It's a very simple process. Try to understand the concepts given in this slide. What we have done, I summarize this slide again. We have got an example and looked at the possible outcomes, which are head and tail. Then we have, from our previous knowledge, we have seen that such an experiment could be easily modeled using this Bernoulli distribution. So we have applied the theory of Bernoulli distribution to this experiment. We have modeled a random variable, that is 1 when a head shows up, and that is 0 when a tail shows up, right? And we get a conclusion that if the probability of P0 mean coming head, that is greater than 1 by 2, it means there would be head. Okay, we continue our previous discussion that modeling data distribution, how we would model it. We have seen an example and we explore it more over here. We estimate probability of x from data if probability x is not known. This is very important point. Previously, we have asked that we do not know about the probability, and if we do not have any knowledge about the probability distribution of given data, we estimate the probability from the sample. Use sample the given data set, how large it is, we are not concerned with it, to estimate the probability distribution. How that is estimated? Let data set x is drawn from some unknown probability distribution P of x. That may be Bernoulli, that may be normal, that may be Poisson, that may be anything else. Using x, the data set that we are given, we try to build an estimator for this probability P of x. And this estimator then would be used to predict the new instances of the data. The accuracy of this estimator will determine the accuracy of our algorithm or the AI based software that we will build. For coin tossing example, sample contains the outcomes of n past n tosses. What does that mean? It means that we suppose we have tossed the coin n times, for example 10 times, and then we will have total 10 instances of head and tail. Using x, we can estimate p0 parameter to uniquely specifies the distribution. Here it is very interesting. There are the parameters of these distributions, and actually we have to estimate the parameters. What are those parameters? We will see later on. How we estimate this probability distribution? We look at the number of tosses with outcome as head, because we are interested in the event of head and total number of tosses. Let xt as our random variable to denote the outcome of an experiment when it is tossed t time, tth time, right? Second time, third time, and fourth time. So what the sample do we have? As previously I say that we have a coin tossing example and we have tossed it 9 times. Now I suppose that the coin is tossed 9 times. So we have head, 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 tail, 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 and so on. So it would be totally 9 times. So we have 9 instances of either head or tail. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and 9. And as previously we have defined a random variable for them. So for a head we will put 1 and for a tail we will put 0. We form this data set, numeric data set with this textual data. And we can see that the probability of coming ahead is total number of times the head occurs divided by the total number of tosses, which is 6/9, mean 2 by 3. That is the probability of coming head, and we have estimated a data distribution for this random coin toss experiment. Now I summarize this slide again. In this example, we have seen a concrete, in this slide, we have seen a concrete example which tells us how we can estimate the probability distribution. And if we are lucky enough to estimate the probability distribution correctly, it means that our prediction would be very good. So the point is that we need a way to estimate the probability of a given data set. Classification. How we do the classification basically. Let's consider a credit scoring example, right? We look at another example. In this, we have observable data features. We suppose that we have two observable data features, which is income and saving. We denote income by x1 and we denote saving by x2. Just like the previous example where we used x to denote the head or the tail. There was one feature, the outcome of the random experiment. Here are two features, so we give two random variables. Bernoulli distribution is again applicable over here. How? We look at this now. Let's see is a Bernoulli random variable where C is equal to 1 high risk customer and 0 low risk customer. Right? C is the outcome, that could be either 1 or 0. If our customer is high risk, we say that it's 1 because we want to identify the high risk customer. That's why we are giving it 1. Probability of C of x. What it means that we have the data set and what is the probability of having high risk customer or customer status. So we have the data set and we want to find the probability of the customer, that is given by probability C given x. We expand this formula here, probability C given x1 and x2, because our this x data set consists of these two features or two variables. And then we can further break them up as this: probability of C is equal to 1 being a high risk customer given x1 and x2, and probability of C being a low risk customer given x1 and x2. So it's just a notation of the things that we can write in text form. We have just written them in the form of probability. High risk customer, if high risk customer, when it would be high risk customer, if probability of C is equal to 1 given x1 and x2, that is greater than probability of C is equal to 0 x1 and x2. What this equation tells? This equation tells that if the probability of C being 1 given the data set is higher than the probability of C given the C is equal to 0 given the same data set, so it would be a high risk customer. And the probability of error is, this is a point to note, what would be the probability of error? Probability of being this high risk customer and probability of being low risk customer. We have two options. Let we have a high risk customer, then in that case our this term would be greater than this term, right? So, and what would be the error? 1 minus whatever the our prediction is. If our prediction, for example, this is 0.8, then 1 minus 0.8 mean 0.2 would be our error chance. Try to understand this formula. If our, let's say that this is the space, here our formula predicts that this is a high risk customer with this much probability, right? Then it is not giving us exactly one value, not 100%. So there would be 20% chance. If it is giving us 80% probability of being a high risk customer for a given customer, so we will have 80%. It gives us 80%, so 80% accurately we can predict, whereas we will have 20% error chance. Similarly, if we have 60% prediction about being a low risk customer, then we will have 40% error, right? So simply we can say that whatever the greater value is, that is our estimate, and the remaining value is our error. So if somehow our function gives with 100% surety with the value of 1 that this customer is a high risk customer, then of course we will have a 0 error. To try to understand this, how we can find the error. Next, the problem can be solved using Bayes rule. This is the Bayes rule, right? This Bayes rule consists of 3 terms. One term is this, other term is this, and third term is this. What are these terms? The first term, this is called the prior probability. The probability which is already given in the data set, or the probability that we can calculate using the given data set, right? That's why it's called a prior probability, because it's already given in your data set. Then there is class likelihood. What is the likelihood that given data set, based on the given data set, the customer would be a high risk customer or it would be a low risk customer? And evidence P is equal to X, that is again estimated from the given data set, because X is the data set. How this formula have been drawn previously we have seen and we have proved it. For example, I can say that probability X intersection C, that is equal to probability C intersection X. And now you can expand and rearrange the terms. So doing this, you can find out this term. If you are unable to do this, go back and look at the previous lectures. So here are the definitions of the prior probability, class likelihood, and evidence. Try to convince yourself that what are these. If you are not able to get this idea from this slide, it would be much better to look at an example of your Bayes rule, which you can find on the net or we may have some example on the coming slides. And here this is the probability distribution given for Bernoulli distribution. Basically this is Bernoulli distribution. The event which we are interested is given the probability, it's given value 1. For example, it has probability 0.7, but we denote it with 1, and this we denote it with 0, although it has some probability, right? Probability, again, this does not mean that this has 100% probability. It means that we are giving it a value 1 because we are interested in this event. This event may have 0.8 probability, 0.7 probability, or 0.2 probability, whatever it is. Multi-class classification using Bayes theorem. Using Bayes theorem, we can also classify the given instance one of different classes, one of multiple classes. Let me suppose that there are k mutually exclusive and exhaustive classes. What does that mean? Mutually exclusive mean, let's say that this is our uniform universe, basically all the area where our given example could lie. It could lie in this rectangle anywhere. So we have three distributions which are mutually exclusive, mean there is nothing overlap between them, and exhaustive mean that all these three k classes make a complete rectangle. Ci I barabar 1 to k, that we have k classes, so Ci mean I class, that would be 1, that would be 2, that would be 3. In our this example, this would be 3 basically. Ci could range from 1, 2 and 3, where I can note it, this is 1, this is 2 and this is 3. Probability of Ci for any class, the probability could be either 0 or greater than 0. For example, here we can see that the probability of red is of course greater than 0, probability of blue is again greater than 0, probability of green is again greater than 0. All these three probabilities, when we combine them, we sum them up, that make up value 1, mean 100%. And probability of all k classes, that is 1, which I have shown you over here. If we have k classes, so probability of all k classes, after summing them up, that would become 1. Now we look at this formula, which is the Bayes formula seen in previous slide and even in previous lectures. What this posterior tells that let we have a data set denoted by x, what is the probability that it lies in class Ci? That is given by, with the help of this formula, probability of coming class Ci, probability of x being in Ci, where Ci is already given, we know the probability of Ci, of course. From here we know the probability of Ci. Ci is there. What is the probability of x being in that class? And what is the probability of data set that we have, coming up data set? So that could be expanded in this form. The upper term would remain as it is, numerator, whereas denominator could be written as this: probability of Ci into probability of x given Ci. Mean that what is the probability that x lies in Ci class, what is the probability C1 class, what is the probability x lies in C2 class, and so on. So let's say that the probability of this is, for example, let I denote it with 0.3, right? This 0.4 and this, let's say that 0.3, right? Totaling this 1. And what is the probability of x being here, and what is the probability of x being here, and what is the probability of x being here? These are. For minimum error, the Bayes classifier chooses the class with the highest posterior probability. This is interesting because we have three classes, right? And we have to find out, before that we look at this term, the denominator. You can understand that we have the data set probability of x, we have data set, so this would be 1, right? We can even equally ignore it, remove it. Then we are left with this formula only, right? It tells us that what's the probability of x being here, what's the probability of x being here, what's the probability of x being here. So there would be some probability here, there would be some probability here, there would be some probability here, and one of these three values would be the maximum one. So whichever the maximum one, we will choose that. For example, the maximum value comes in this portion. We will say that given x belongs to this class Ci, where there is the maximum probability, this, right? Again, you can find multiple examples of Bayes theorem on internet. Go find uh, an example and try to put the values in this formula, and you will come up with the right kind of understanding of it. Losses and risks. Now we see that how we can denote the loss and the risk. Again, these are the things that we usually discuss about the prediction, but here we will see that how we can write them in a mathematical form. The total risk by assigning each class to given data x is, again, remember we have seen in previous slide that we have 3 classes, right? So the total risk by assigning each class to given data set, if we assign this data set here, what would be the risk? If we assign data set here, what would be the risk? If we assign data set here, what would be the risk? So risk that is given by, we have the data set. So assigning a class I, how much risk would be? We can denote it with the help of R risk given that is alpha I, mean assigning a class I given x, whereas we have already the data set available in hands. And we can write it like this, right? Now we have used here lambda ik, probability of ckx. It means that the probability of assigning class ck to x, and that is multiplied by lambda ik. What is lambda ik? Lambda ik, that is the loss incurred by taking this action. Mean that if we assign x to class ck, what would be the loss? What would be the error? It means basically. Whereas I is the predicted class and k is the actual class, right? Now choose alpha I if R risk of alpha I given x is equal to minimum R alpha k x. What does this statement tells? This statement tells us that if we have 3 portions, there would be some risk here. For example, R1 here, R2 here, and R3 here. We will choose the class that will generate the minimum risk, right? Alpha I is the process of assigning a class. So we will choose the alpha I, the class which will has the minimal risk among all these 3. And if we have k classes, so among all k classes, and that is an understandable way why we choose it. For a special case of 0-1 output and all correct decisions have no loss. That's interesting. And all errors are equally costly. What does that mean? That means that this alpha ik mean assigning class I, whereas that instance or that value of x actually belong to class k would be 0 if I and k is equal. It means that the actual class k and the predicted class I, if they are the same, then there is no loss, there is no error, we are 100% accurate, so no loss means 0 loss. However, if we assign any other class I, whereas the actual class is k, then we have 100% error denoted by 1. So if this formula is clear to you, rest of the expressions would be easy for you to understand. Risk of assigning class I to data x is given by this formula, that is summation 1 to k lambda ik pck x, probability of this, right? It means what is the probability of x being in ck, right, multiplied by alpha ik, whereas alpha ik either 0 or 1. It means that we can expand this formula in this way for our better understanding. Alpha summation I is equal to k alpha ik p ck x given x. The probability of assigning class ck, whereas we have already x with us, multiplied by lambda ik, whereas I is equal to k. It means we are assigning the same class, which is the actual class of the data x, and assigning a different class from the actual class of the x. So this, if we assign the same class, which is actual class, we will have zero risk. If there is zero risk, so this term could be eliminated. And in this case, this would be our total error, right? Here we further work out and we say that we are left with only this term because lambda ik, in case of error, we have assumed to be 1. Summation I is equal to k lambda ik probability c k given x, mean we are assigning a class k to data set x, and that is given by this. Because this lambda ik is 1, so we can just multiply it with it and 1 would be removed. We are left with it, this term, which is summed up over all the instances because lambda ik is 1. So what does that mean? It means that here we can see that, interesting, we have, for example, 3 classes, or here I again divide it into 3 parts. That this is the ith class, which is actual class, and this is wrong class, and this is wrong class, right? So the summing of the probabilities of this and this, total probability of all this is 1, remember. So by summing the probability of these two, class 1 for example, class 2 and class 3, these two probabilities could be given by 1 minus this probability, right? I again explain it with the help of actual values. Let I have this C1, I have this C2, and I have this C3, 3 classes. The probability of this is, for example, 0.2, probability of this is 0.3, and probability of this is 0.5. This expression tells me that I have to sum up all these two probabilities, 0.2 plus 0.3, that comes up 0.5. But this C3, probability of this class, it could be given as, if I write this 1 minus 0.5, it gives me the same value 0.5, mean the total probability of these two classes. So either I can write the formula like this or I can write like this. In both way it is correct. Another thing is that we have a loss, we have a risk, and we want to minimize that risk, right? We want to find a minima in our this curve. This minimal loss would be our best solution. This point would be our best solution. So we understand that what is the loss and what is the risk. Now we look at loss function and doubt cases. In some applications, wrong decisions or misclassifications may have very high cost. For example, if we are going to write an application for automatic driving vehicle, or we are going to write an application where a robot would do a surgery of a human heart or the brain in order to remove the affected part or malignant part, right? Okay, ck plus 1 is a class chosen, reject, right? What it mean? It mean that if we have k classes in our data set, right? We have these three classes, 1, 2, and 3. Our system, instead of predicting any one of these, it predicts some class which is ck plus 1, which does not lie in our data set. Something different, right? Non-existent class is chosen. In such a case, we define an additional action of reject and doubt, right? Remember, in that case, this is, for example, ck plus 1, I write it 4. If our algorithm, and let's say class 3 is the actual class, if our algorithm predicts this class 3, so there is no risk, zero risk here. However, if it predicts class 2, there is some risk, S1. If it predicts some other thing, S2, there is some risk. But if it predicts this class 4, S3, it has greater risk than these, right? Try to understand this. Predicting the exact class has zero risk. Predicting the classes that lie inside the data set have some risk, whereas predicting a class that does not lie in our data set has the maximum risk. So how that could be modeled in our formulas. In such a case, we define an additional action of reject or doubt, where now we define a lambda that could be either 0, r1, or in between them. Three values a lambda can obtain. Is the loss incurred for choosing the k plus first action of reject? So here we can see that 0, no loss if the predicted class and the actual class are same. 1, exact loss if I and k are different, and lambda in case where I is predicted to be a class which is not present inside the data set. So the risk could be alpha k plus 1 given x, mean what is the risk that if we have a data set, what is the risk to decide that x belongs to class k plus 1? That is given by summation 1 to k lambda pck given x. This we have previously seen. The same expression we can write it like this. This could be expressed like this. What does that it mean? It means that x, the data set that we have, we are predicting it in class ck, right? And we multiply it with lambda. As lambda is independent of the class, so we take it outside and we sum up all the probabilities, right, lying this data set in given classes. So it means that actually this x could lie either in this class or in this class or in this class, but it could not lie in this class. So the probability of this x lying in any one of these class, the total probability, that is given by 1. So 1 multiply lambda, that becomes lambda. And the risk of choosing Ci class is given by this. Risk Ci given x is equal to, this was the risk given by chosen for the class which does not lie in your any of the given classes, right? And if such case occur, that becomes some doubt case. Doubt case means that system does not have information about that case, so you have to decide it manually. However, if system chooses Ci class, whereas I lies between these three classes, among these three classes, so we can write it like this: risk alpha I, whereas we have x data set, that could be given as summation k is not equal to I lambda pc k x. Here I could have either 1 or 2 or 3 value, and the actual class could be either 1, 2 or 3, and we are taking only those instances which does not qualify correctly, mean erroneous cases, because if they are classified correctly, that would be dealt by this formula, 0 value, lambda would be 0, so that term would become 0 in the same way that we have seen in the previous slide. So we can write it lambda pck given x, right? And again we can write like this. This description I have given in detail in the previous slide. You must have understood it. Otherwise, go back and listen to the description that given over here in the previous slide. Loss function. Let we have this function with us. The optimal decision rule is 2. What would be the decision rule that we have to follow when we have to classify them? Choose class Ci if risk of choosing class I when we have a data set X is less than of choosing a class K we have a data set for all K not equal to I, right? So if choosing the class alpha I has minimal risk, mean we will select a class that will have minimal risk, right? And the risk of alpha I given X less than equal to alpha K given X, right? So try to understand these two formulas, this formula. And we will reject class Ci. Our algorithm will say that this given X does not associated is not associated with the class Ci if alpha k plus 1 given X less than equal to risk alpha I given X. What does it mean? It means that risk of assigning class k plus 1 is less than risk of assigning class I, right? Mean that if we have these three and somehow we calculate that risk of assigning here is higher, risk of assigning here is higher, and risk of assigning here is higher, whereas risk of assigning here is minimal or lesser than all these three, then we will simply reject the case, right? Because this class is giving us low error, but it does not lie in our data set. So try to understand these accept and reject conditions. Okay? You will write them on your paper and you will try to think in your mind that how it works, right? It would be better that if you write the textual descriptions of these expressions. Choose Ci if accept. How? If the probability of Ci is greater than probability of Ck. Mean exact class or whatever the class, there are three classes, right? And let's say that this is ith class and these are not I classes. So if the probability of putting this X into this class is greater than putting rest of the classes, then choose this class. In case of risk, we want to see the minimal value, and in case of probability, we would see the maximum value, right? For all k not equal to I. And PCI given X greater than 1 minus lambda. But it says that the probability of putting X in class Ci is equal to 1 minus putting lambda, where lambda is some error that we have already denoted this, putting it outside, right? So mean we are looking at two cases. What those two cases? One case is this for k plus 1, the probability of putting the value, the instance X in this class have lower probabilities than putting in this class. So in this expression here, we compare PCI given X putting in I given these two classes, for these two classes, right? So actually here we are working with these three classes, this one, and this one. And in this we are discussing the relationship of this class with a class that does not exist outside our classes. So it means that we are, this accept condition is telling us that choose I only if the probability of putting X in this class is higher than this, higher than this, and higher than this. Otherwise reject it. The whole approach is meaningful if 0 is less than lambda less than 1. If lambda is 0, we always reject. A reject is as good as a correct classification, right? Mean that if lambda is 0, we are putting lambda 0, so it would be 0, right? Probability of PCI given X greater than 1, it would never happen because 1 is the maximum probability and this would always be less than 1. So we will come into the otherwise and we will keep on rejecting the instances. And if lambda greater than equal to 1, we never reject. A reject is as costly as or costlier than an error. What does it mean? It means that if lambda greater than 1, this, so we will have this value in negative. And if this value becomes negative, it means that this value, whatever small it is, it would be greater than this. And if it is greater than this, we will keep on accepting. We will never go to the second case. It shows that the value of lambda should be between 0 and 1. Discriminant function. Classification can also be seen as implementing a set of discriminant functions. Discriminant function is very simple to consider. We have already seen that if we have something, if statement, if x less than 5, so mean we are discriminating, right? So you can visualize the if statement as a discriminant function, just for the simplicity of the case. Let GIX such that I is equal to 1, 2, 3, 4, K, right? Choose CI if GIX is equal to max GKX of K. What it mean? It means that GIX is a function, or you can say that the probability, the value, there is some function which gives you some value, right? When you put X in class K mean 3 classes, so I say look at the example of these 3 classes, right? So we will have the probability putting X here, right? X1 I denoted this putting over here 2 and putting it here 3, right? So these would be, we will choose the value that gives us maximum score. For example, we have 3 values. Here is 0.4, 0.3 and 0.3. So we will choose the function that gives us the maximum value, which is this, right? You can say that this is g1 of x, right? Similarly, this is g2 of x and this is g3 of x. Bayes classifier can be represented as x is equal to minus r alpha I given x. That is something opposite to the risk. Mean that if we put x in class I, the risk that we want to minimize, right? However, the probability that we want to maximize, so the reverse of this risk would be the probability that we want to maximize. Maximum discriminant function correspond to minimum conditional risk. When we use the 0-1 loss function that we have previously seen, alpha this lambda, right? This is 0-1 loss function, whereas we remove this term. When we use the 0-1 loss function, we have Gix is equal to PCI given x. It means that what is the probability that x, we have x, so that belongs to class Ci, and according to the Bayes theorem that we have previously seen in last slides, so that could be written as this: probability of Ci given x, that is the likelihood, and probability of Ci, that is the prior, by ignoring the common normalizing term Px, right? That is a normalizing term. Px tells that what is the probability that x would arrive. So we have x, the probability of this x would be 1. Decision regions. Divide the feature space into k dimension regions. For example, this is the feature space. We have x1 and x2. If we look at the previously the example of our family car, we have the power and horsepower, right? I like HP0, and here I like the price, right? So we divide it into 3 parts. It means we have 3 decision regions. If some next new given instance either lies here or here or here, then we can decide about it whether it is correctly or not correctly. But if that lies here in this region, we simply reject. It means that our system is not able to decide about this instance. The regions are separated by decision boundaries. Here you can see that the decision boundaries are given. Lines in plane. For example, if we have this plane, so we define the boundaries with the help of lines. Plane in space, and if we have space, here you can see that we have a 3D space, so we have the planes which can be used to divide the whole space into different regions, right? It means that we can call it as a discriminator function as well. This is a discriminator function. This line could be drawn with the help of a function that is known as discriminator function. So when we are working in a 2D, we will have a discriminator function of 1 dimension, and if we are working in a 3D, we will have a discriminator function of 2 dimension, 1 dimension less than the space in which we are working. When k is equal to 2, the number of classes is equal to 2, the classification system is a dichotomizer. For example, instead of these lines, I just have a one line over here. So this line would be called as dichotomizer. If there are more than 2 classes, then we will have a polychotomizer, right? So in this case, we have these 3 lines. Each of these 3 lines is known as dichotomizer, but collectively they are known as polychotomizer. And that is the total lecture. I hope you got the concept of different things. What are the losses? What are the rejection functions? What are the doubt cases? How the classification could work? The assignment of this lecture is to look at the examples of Bayes theorem and then implement the Bayes theorem in Python language. I will upload the assignment on the course site, and then you will have a proper time to code and upload it. Thank you for watching. Allah Hafiz.